Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, The Status Quo, Chapter 1, Questions by Vidura, Text 40. Am I the host and I need to put the verse up? There it is. Sorry.
Just 1 second, Prabhu. I'm getting it ready.
Okay. Oh, okay, thanks. I wasn't sure if you were here or if I had to be the host. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 1, Text 40. Aho pratapi driyater bakarte rajar shivaryena vinapitena yastveka viro dirato vijigye danur dvitiya kakubas chatashra. Aho pratapi driyater bakarte rajar shivaryena vinapitena Yastveka viro dirato vijigye danur dvitiya kakubas chatashra. Aho pratapi driyater bakarte rajar shivaryena vinapitena Yastveka viro dirato vijigye Danur dvitiya kakubas chatashra. Everyone chant, please.
Aho pratapi driyater bhikate rajar shivaryena vinapitena yastveka viro dhirato vijigye dhanur dvitiya kakubhaschatu chatashra.
Aho pritapi driyaterbakarte rajarshivaryena vinapitena yastveka viro dhiratho vijigye dhanurdvitiya kakubhaschatashra.
Anyone else?
Aho pritapi driyate datkarte rajaršivaryena vinapitena yastvekaviro tirato vijikye dhanurdi dvitiya kakubhaschatashra. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? No? Word for word translation. Aho, O my Lord, Prita Kunti, Api also, Driyate bears her life, Arbaka Arte for the sake of fatherless children, Rajarshi, King Pandu, Varyena, the best, Vina Api, without him, Tena, him, Ya, one who, Tu, but, Eka, alone, Vira, the warrior, Adhirata, commander, Vijigye, could conquer, Danu, the bow, Dvitiya, the second, Kakubha, directions, Chatashra, 4. Translation. O my Lord, is Prita still living? She lived only for the sake of her fatherless children. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to live without King Pandu, who was the greatest commander and who alone conquered the 4 directions simply with the help of a second bow. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. A faithful wife cannot live without her lord, the husband, and therefore all widows used to voluntarily embrace the burning fire which consumed the dead husband. The system was very common in India because all the wives were chaste and faithful to their husbands. Later on, with the advent of the age of Kali, the wives gradually began to be less adherent to their husbands, and the voluntary embrace of the fire by the widows became a thing of the past. Very recently, the system was abolished, since the voluntary system had become a forcible social custom. When Maharaj Pandu died, both his wives, namely Kunti and Madri, were prepared to embrace the fire, but Madri requested Kunti to live for the sake of the younger children, the 5 Pandavas. This was agreed upon by Kunti at the added request of Vyasadeva. In spite of her great bereavement, Kunti decided to live, not to enjoy life in the absence of her husband, but only to give protection to the children. This incident is referred to here by Vidura because he knew all the facts about his sister-in-law Kunti Devi. It is understood that Maharaj Pandu was a great warrior and that he alone, with the help of bow and arrow, could conquer the world's 4 directions. In the absence of such a husband, it was almost impossible for Kunti to live on even as a widow, but she had to do it for the sake of the 5 children. Back up to the verse, please. Yes. Aho pritapi driyater bakarte rajar shivaryena vinapitena yastveka viro dirato vijigye danur dvitiya kakubas chatasha. O my Lord, is Pritha still living? She lived only for the sake of her fatherless children. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to live without King Pandu, who was the greatest commander and who alone conquered the 4 directions simply with the help of a second bow. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanivari Paschata Deshatarine. I'm not going to talk about the sati ritual, the sati rites, the self-immolation of the wife after the passing of the husband, except to say it's an ancient Vedic tradition that is not and should not be practiced nowadays. But we can simply be amazed at the power of such husbands and the power of such wives through their chastity that they were willing to do that without imitating it. So this is a very beautiful chapter. Actually, I'm really liking hearing Vidura. Poor Vidura, he knows what's going on, but he's inquiring about the welfare of all these people, all the different kings and the Krishna's children and grandchildren. And then he gets to the Pandavas. So very quickly, I just wanted to look at those verses because they're very nice. He deals with each of the Pandavas and he gives like a thumbnail in inquiring about them. He gives like a nice thumbnail sketch of each of them. When he inquires a couple of shlokas ago about Yudhishthir, I'm sorry, I had it, but then I lost it.
36.
Yeah, Vidika. Yes, thank you. Api swadurbyam vijayachutabhyam dharmena dharma paripati setum. Also, let me inquire whether Maharaj Yudhishthir is now maintaining the kingdom according to religious principles and respect for the path of religion. So Yudhishthir, because he's senior, he's going in order of seniority of the Pandavas, starting with Yudhishthir. So Dharmena Dharma Paripati, this is a very interesting phrase. And each of these verses has a nice, beautiful phrase, also poetic, that Dharmena Dharma Paripati. You could hear the repetition of the Dharmena Dharma Paripati, nice repetition of sound. It's beautiful poetically and very nice meaning. Dharmena Dharma Paripati. So he's Dharma. Dharma is mentioned twice because he is Dharma. He's Dharmaraj. He's the son of Dharmaraj, Yamaraj. So he's also Dharmaraj. And Paripati. Paripati means maintains. We know Pati means like Lord. Husband is also called Pati. The Lord is called Pati. And Pari means all around, just like in English, we have the English word like perimeter. So that root perimeter, peri from perimeter, that also comes from the Sanskrit pari, all around, like the perimeter is the outside measurement of a shape or of something. That's a perimeter all around. So he's protecting Dharma. He is Dharma himself, and he's ruling according to religious principles. Paripati everywhere, all over the world. He's ruling nicely in that way. And so, how is this Dharmaraj Yudhishthir doing, ruling everywhere like this? Then next he asks about Bhim. Bhim also has a nice thumbnail sketch. Kimva kritagesh agam atyamarshi bhimo hiva dirgatamam vyamunchat. Please tell me whether the unconquerable Bhima, who is like a cobra, has released his long cherished anger upon the sinners. So again, a nice thumbnail image of Bhim. Has he released his anger, quenched his anger? What's the Sanskrit there? Krita Geshu Agam. And I guess, again, we get this nice poetic sound repetition, Ageshu Agam. Has he quenched his anger against the sinful wretches? And we know of all the Pandavas, Bhima is famous for being a little hot-tempered, being a little angry. Even we were hearing some months ago, we were hearing how in the household of the Pandavas, Yudhishthir had made the rule that everyone had to treat Dhritarashtra with utmost kindness and utmost respect and utmost delicacy, even to the point of maintaining the illusion that he was still a king, that he was still in charge. The standing rule was you treat him well and let him think he's in charge. Let him think and behave as though he was the king, even though he was actually not. Even though he's not only not king, but he is actually living like a dog, accepting the scraps of beam. And all of the Pandavas and everyone in Yudhishthir's household, of course, obeyed Yudhishthir and treated Dhritarashtra very nicely. But Bhim wouldn't. Even despite his elder brother's injunctions, he would come before Dhritarashtra and he would start, it's described how like wrestlers, Prabhupada would describe it, he'd be slapping their arms. And, Bhim's arms are like tree trunks. He's so strong. And he'd say, these arms are so powerful. With these arms, I killed all the sinful sons of Dhritarashtra. He would say this in front of Dhritarashtra, mocking him, teasing him, insulting him like that. So he had that anger. So Vidura is asking, has his anger finally been quenched, been satisfied? Next, of course, is most famous of all is Arjuna. And in fact, his fame is the description of him calls on his fame. Kachid Yashoda Rata Yutapanam. Yashoda, just like Mother Yashoda, her name means one who gives fame, or who creates fame. So here, Kachid Yashoda Rata Yatapanam. Rata Yatapanam means, how is Arjuna, who is the most famous chariot fighter in existence? He's so famous with his Gandiva. And next verse, Gandiva Danvo Paratarir Aste. Famous as the greatest chariot fighter of all time. And with his Gandiva bow, the most famous bow of all time. How is he doing? This most famous amongst all of them. How is he? And then after him, the twins, Nakul and Sahadev. Yamav utasit tanayo pritaya partarvito pakshmabir akshaniva. These twins, Nakul and Sadev, Partar Vrito Pakshmabir. And again, we get this nice sound repetition, Partar Pakshmabir. Are these twins, are they being fully protected, fully sheltered by the shields, by the weapons of Partar? We know Arjuna is known as Partha because he's the son of Pritha, Kunti, but actually all of the Pandavas are considered Partha because they're all the children of Kunti, so they're all Partha. So Parthar Vrito Pakshmabir, are these youngest twin sons, Nakul and Sahadev, are they still living nicely under the protection of their elder brothers, the sons of Kunti? So in this way, all of the Pandavas are gone through. How are they? How is this one? How is that one? And describing their qualities in brief very nicely, glorifying them and inquiring about them. And this inquiry is also nice. Just like just yesterday, actually, I was coming home from a Bhagavad Gita reading, and I stopped at the temple on my way home. And I met a devotee, Keshi Hunter, who I hadn't seen in years. He's an old friend from the Boston temple, and we met and embraced and offered obeisances, and we spent like an hour. Oh, how's this person? How's that person? Remember this person? How are they doing? When was the last time you talked with such and such Das from here and this person from there? And it was very blissful and very nice. And this is natural, especially among devotees or among anyone. If you meet someone you haven't seen in some time, you think of the common friends you have. Oh, how's Joe doing? How's Mary doing? How's this person, that person doing? And here, the people that the shared friends that Vidura and Uddhava have are all these amazing, amazing personalities. So therefore, their discussion is worthy to be read by everyone, worthy to be heard by everyone. But even in our ordinary Vaishnava life, this is also beautiful that devotees come together and we talk about, oh, this devotee, he's preaching so nicely. This person, he got married, or he took sannyas, or he's preaching, or he's earning, or he's doing this service or that service. So it's the same type of thing. Not the five Pandavas, but the same ideas there, that talking about the devotees, preaching to each other about the devotees. And then next, today we hear about Kunti, and the verse starts off Aho. And we've heard this Aho many times, and it's been discussed many times. Prabhupada translated as, oh my Lord. And it often carries a context of like surprise or amazement, like here, oh my Lord, but in English, like we say, oh my God, OMG, like if something amazing or surprising happens. So that's this idea of aho. So what was the surprise? Aho, that Kunti, despite losing her husband, and at that time, the expectation, number one, because Pandu was so amazing, and number two, because Kunti was so amazing, that it was expected that she would undergo the sati rite. So he's surprised. So he's expressing some amazement that, oh no, but she remained alive simply for the sake of Arbakarta. Arbaka means the children. Just for the sake of the children, she remained alive. And she's glorified herself and also her husband here. That Pandu was such an incredible, amazing warrior. Yastveka viro dirato vijige danur dvitiya kakubai chatashra. There's a nice it's a kind of wordplay going on here. That Pandu is so powerful that he's Eka Vira. Eka means one, or alone, or by himself. Vira, that alone by himself, just one person. Kakubi Kakubai Chatashra, that he could conquer all the four directions. Conquering all the four directions means Digvijay, means conquering all the world. Just the one person, this one warrior alone, so powerful that he could conquer the whole world by himself. But then it says Danur Dvitiya, but there's a second thing, a second person or a second being, and that second being is his bow. So it's almost like a play on words that, oh, the two of them conquered the world, and the two are Pandu and his bow. But actually, of course, it's just Pandu manipulating the bow. So that's a little play on words going there, accentuating what an amazing, powerful person this Pandu was, and such a devoted husband and proper husband. And but due to his curse, he had to die early. Madri entered the fire, and Kunti went on to live just for the sake of these children. And she did so much for these children. What that means is that really her whole life was dedicated to the children. Because if it weren't for the children, she would have voluntarily died. She would have given up her life. So that means she was living only for the children. And yes, the Pandavas are eternally liberated souls, eternal associates of Krishna. Yet at the same time, we can never discount this potency of parents or a mother or a father who are there for the children and guiding the children and training the children, so that even if those children become the most amazing creatures, even if they're already eternal associates of the Lord, still we praise the mother and father who are responsible. In Krishna book, Prabhupada dedicates it to his father. I'm sorry, find this quickly, the dedication. To my father, Gaur Mohan Dey, born in 1849, passed away in 1930, a pure devotee of Krishna, who raised me as a Krishna-conscious child from the beginning of my life. In my boyhood ages, he instructed me how to play the mridanga. He gave me Radha Krishna Vigraha to worship, and he gave me Jagannath Rat to duly observe the festival as my childhood play. He was kind to me, and I imbibed from him the ideas later on solidified by my spiritual master, the Eternal Father. And that also we discussed last time I gave class. We discussed how the guru is Chakudan Dilo J Janme Janme Pita Se. We discussed it. I think it was in the last class I gave here. So, but Gaur Mohan Dey and his mother also so kind to him and brought him up like that, that even though Prabhupada, we know, is directly descended from the spiritual world, an eternally liberated soul, directly sent by Krishna himself, but still he's giving credit to the father. And the Pandavas also, but still Kunti gets credit. And we heard also in the previous canto, in the first canto, I think it was, about the birth of Yudhishthira also, how he was a child. Now Yudhishthira, how elevated a person. But we heard how, oh, I'm sorry, not Yudhishthira, I mean Parikshit Maharaj, the son of the Pandavas, the son of the Pandavas, that when he was a child, he was brought up to, worship Krishna and given Krishna dolls to play with and imitate the puja going on in the house. So all of these are going on, and in the next chapter, when here we're this chapter we're hearing about Vidura, in the next chapter when we hear about Uddhava, the same description is there. How from his very childhood he was imitating the worship, he was absorbed in Krishna, he was playing with Krishna dolls in his childhood. So this is how amazing Kunti is. What an incredible devotee Kunti is. Also, I'll share this little bit about her lineage because it's relevant, because Janmashtami was just a couple of days ago, so it ties in with that. That there was a very great and important king. His name was, sometimes his name is given as Devamida, and sometimes as Devida, is a very great king, important king in the Yadu dynasty. And he had one Kshatriya wife. He was a king, a Kshatriya, so he had Kshatriya wife, but he also had a Vaishya wife. And from the Vaishya wife, he had one son, and that son's name was Parjanya. And because he was half Kshatriya, half Vaishya, he left the kingdom of Mathura, where the head of the kingdom was at that time. He left Mathura, crossed the river, and went to live in Gokul. And when he went to live there, all of the residents of Gokul, partially because he was half Kshatriya, and also just because his intelligence and his qualities were all so amazing that they made him the king of all the cowherd men in Gokul, this Parjanya. And then Parjanya, in the course of his life, he had 5 children. And those 5 children from oldest to youngest were Upananda, Abhinanda, Nanda, Sunanda, and Nandan. These, of course, are Nanda Maharaj and his 5 brothers. So he was the father of these 5 brothers of Nanda Maharaj. And when he was old, he retired to devote himself entirely, exclusively to the worship of Krishna. And naturally, as the Kshatriyas do, he left the ruling of Gokula, of the cowherd men, to his eldest son, Upananda. But Upananda said, no, of the 5 of us, the most qualified is actually Nanda. So he'll be the king and I will simply be his advisor. So it's often said that as among the 5 Pandavas, the middle Pandava, Arjuna, is the most qualified and the most devoted and the most famous. Similarly, there's Pancha Pandava. So among these 5 Nandas, the Pancha Nandas, that Nanda, the middle son, was also the most qualified, the most devoted, the most learned, the most expert. Therefore Nanda Maharaj became the king of the cowherd men. And at the same time, he also had his Devamida had his Kshatriya wife. And from that Kshatriya wife, he also had a son. He had many children, but he had one son in particular who was Vasudev. And Vasudev, of course, became the father of Krishna. So on one side, one wife produced the father of Krishna, and the other wife on the other side also produced the father of Krishna, Vasudeva and Nanda Maharaj. Let me see where I am now. Right. So from that Kshatriya wife, he had a son, Surasen, and Surasen was the father of Vasudeva. My mistake there. And that Surasen also had a daughter, and that daughter was named Pritha, Kunti. But she wasn't named Kunti at that time. She was Pritha. And that Surasen had a close friend, a king, Kunti Bhoja, who was without children. So he gifted his daughter to Kunti Bhoja, and thus she became named Kunti. And that's Queen Kunti. So that family relationship is there between all of them. And this amazing family, and Kunti is as qualified as any of them. Also in the Vedic literature, in the Brahma Purana, and just culturally, the chastity of women is very worshipped, actually. Prabhupada would sometimes talk about, he would mention Sita, Lord Ramachandra's wife Sita, and Mandodari, the wife of Ravana, as very chaste women, and Draupadi as extremely chaste women who should be worshipped and respected. And there's actually a verse in the Brahma Purana that mentioned what are called Panchakanya, 5 very important chaste women who are to be worshipped and remembered. That Ahalya, Draupadi, Kunti, Tara, Mandodari, Tata, Panchakanya Smaren Nityam Mahapatakkanashini. So Ahalya, Draupadi, Kunti, Tara, and Mandodari are five very chaste, very powerful, very devoted women. And Panchakanya, these five women, smare nityam, should be remembered constantly. And by doing so, Mahapatakanasini, by doing so, all one's sins are eradicated. So these five women are there as extremely worshipable. Ahalya was, without making the class overly long, Ahalya was the wife of Gautama Muni. She was seduced by Indra, so her husband cursed her to have a ghost-like form. And many years later, when Lord Ramachandra came to the ashram where she was residing in this unmanifest form, she approached him, touched his lotus feet, and she regained her life and her body again, and was accepted again as a chaste woman by her husband Gautama Muni. So that's Ahalya. Draupadi, we all know Draupadi. Draupadi was so chaste, so devoted to her husbands that she went to the forest with them, she went into exile with them, and so powerful that simply by her being offended in the Asat Sabha, in the corrupt assembly of the Kurus, because she was insulted, the entire Kurukshetra war took place, and millions of soldiers were killed, and entire royal lineages were destroyed and exterminated from the face of the earth simply because an offense was committed against her. So Draupadi was so powerful. Tara, now I'm forgetting. Yes, Tara was the wife of Bali. And after Bali was killed, she remained as a consort, or maybe more like an advisor to Sugriv. And she saved Sugriv from a lot of trouble. We know in Ramayana, when the rainy season, when Sugriv and Ram and Lakshman befriended each other, and Sugriv said, yes, I'm definitely going to help you. As soon as the rainy season's over, we'll send out our scouts to do that. But the rainy season ended, and Lakshman, both of them, but Lakshman especially, saw that Sugriv was simply absorbed in sense gratification, sporting with his girlfriends, drinking, carousing, and not helping Lord Ram. And Lakshman was ready to destroy him for that, because Lakshman also has a temper, like Balaram. But Tara preached to him and said, you had better wake up and get on the ball. You promised your help to Lord Ram and you have to help him. Your behavior now is shameful, and if you promise to help him, and not only that, but if you don't help him, then Lakshman is going to destroy you in a second. So Tara is another great important woman, and Mandodari, the wife of Ravana, who also tried so hard to put Ravana on the right path, to save him from his evil nature, from his evil behavior. She tried so hard. It said that after Ravana was killed, then Mandodari and all of the women and all the wives of Lanka came out to lament. And she said, Deha krito nam gridranam atma naraka hetave. She said, oh, Ravana. And Prabhupada explains there that Ravana means one who makes the whole world cry. He was so cruel and so evil. And she says, Deha krito nam gridhanam. By your acts, you have made Deha krito nam. You have made your body fit to be the food of vultures and jackals. And Atmanarika Hetave, and you've made your soul fit for going to hell. So she understood Dharma. She understood the position of Lord Ramachandra. So these are the qualified women of that time. And even amongst all of these amazing qualified women, Kunti stands out as one of them. Not just for her chastity, which was there, not just for her intelligence and her political acumen. In the Mahabharata, she was involved in the political dealings and seeing that things were done properly, and what to speak of protecting her sons, but mainly for her very intense and exclusive devotion to Krishna and her amazing intelligence and learning and poetry in expressing that devotion. Amongst all the prayers, there's so many groups of prayers in the Bhagavatam, and the Kunti Stotra is amongst them, so amazing and so famous and so beautiful. Just like if you go to the questions of the sages in Naimisharanya, the whole Bhagavatam is answering those questions. But Kunti Stotra in itself answers those questions. So, and tells us all about Krishna and how to understand Krishna and how to approach and worship Krishna in that Kunti Stotra. So she's not just chaste and powerful, but she's such a topmost devotee, such a Krishna bhakta of such an unimaginably high standard. In fact, she was such a great devotee. We heard also in the past canto, when Arjuna came back and was telling Yudhishthira about the disappearance of Krishna, which also relates to what we're hearing now. It's described, let's see if I could quickly find that. That's in the first canto. 1:15:33. Pritapya nushrutya dhananjayoditam nasam yadunam bhagavad-gatim chatam ekanta bhaktya bhagavatir hoksaje niveshitatma pararama samshrite. Kunti, after overhearing Arjuna's telling of the end of the Yadu dynasty and the disappearance of Lord Krishna, engaged in the devotional service of the transcendental personality of Godhead with full attention, and thus gained release from the course of material existence. Now, Kunti is already an eternally liberated soul, an eternal associate of Krishna, and a blood relation of Krishna, as I described earlier as well. And such an important person and devoted person. But still, when she heard this disappearance of Krishna, then immediately on the spot, even though there was no material attachment, it said she gave up all her material attachment and immediately attained Krishna. The particular word used in the verse is atmo pararama, which Prabhupada translates as became released from. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one meaning is that she became completely detached from material life, and that way became released. Another meaning is that she immediately entered samadhi and became dull like a stone or like a senile old person, just simply stopped reacting to any outside stimulus and all, and just remained internal in her devotion to Krishna. And a third understanding, although it doesn't say that she did that, he said this is another meaning of Upararama, is that she simply died on the spot and went back to Godhead. So all of these are possible interpretations of what happened to Kunti at that time. So this is how devoted she was. She was devoted to, lived just for the sake of her children, but even more so for the sake of Krishna. And that's what we hear about in her Kunti prayers, only for the sake of Krishna. This is one-pointed devotion to Krishna, that the Krishna bhakti is the only real point. She is existing only as a servant of Krishna. Although the story is that she's existing only for the sake of her sons, but ultimately she's existing only the servant of Krishna, only to be identified exclusively as the servant of Krishna. Jiver Swarupai Krishna Nityadas. That's what Swarup means. That means that Swarup means that this is your identity. We also heard a couple of months ago that Muktir Hitwanyata Rupam Swarupena Vyavastiti. that mukti, liberation, or upararama, this freedom that Kunti attained, hitwa anyatarubam, it's giving up all the other forms, the form of Kunti as a woman, the form of Kunti as a mother, the form of Kunti as a politician, as a this, as a that, and swarupena vivastiti, and accepting only that one swarup form. This is swarup, just like jiver swarupai. That one swarup is accepting the eternal form, that I am only a servant of Krishna and nothing else. In the beginning, very beginning, or in the animal stage, the living entity has so many identities. I'm the identity that I'm the eater of this food, and I'm the enjoyer of this mate, and I'm the conqueror of this enemy, and the killer of this foe, and the helper of this person, and so many identities. Then a little bit more advanced, the living entity adds one more identity to that. Oh, I'm also the servant of Krishna. So I'm the servant of Krishna, and I'm the husband of the wife, and I'm the enjoyer of my senses, and all of these different things are the universe or the solar system of our identity. So a little advanced, you add God to that. And then when you become more advanced and you take to Krishna consciousness, or supposed to be, that, okay, the most important thing is that I am a devotee of Krishna. And I have all these other things, and I put being a devotee of Krishna in the center, and everything else, including myself and everything else in my life, revolves around that. But there's also a stage where the devotion to Krishna is not just the biggest thing, not just the central thing, but the only thing. And that's the stage that Kunti achieved. It's only because she achieved a stage like that she could pray Vipada Shantu Tashashwat Tacha Tacha Jagat Guru Bhavato Darshanam Yat Syat Apurna Bhava Darshanam. It's only when that's your identity exclusively as a devotee of Krishna that you could pray like that let these calamities comes. I don't care if the calamities come, let them come more and more. Because when the calamities come, then I see Krishna. And when I see Krishna, then I'm free, then I'm liberated. This is the exclusive devotion to Krishna that Kunti had. Just like also in all the 26 qualities of a devotee, there's so many nice qualities. A devotee is learned, a devotee is intelligent, a devotee is poetic, a devotee is clean, a devotee is sane, a devotee is kind. But of those qualities, there's one quality, Krishnaika Sharanam. Krishna Eka Sharanam means exclusive devotion to Krishna. As Pandu was Ekavir, so we want to be Krishna Eka Sharanam in the same way, that exclusively, that's our one thing, our one business, our one engagement, exclusive devotion to Krishna. Exclusive means that there's nothing else in second place that we give our devotion to. Exclusive devotion to Krishna. And therefore it's said that if you have those other qualities of a devotee, you're kind, you're clean, you're poetic, but you don't have the quality of Krishnaika Sharanam, then you're not qualified. Then you're actually not qualified. And if you have that one quality of exclusive devotion to Krishna, even if you're lacking in some of the other qualities for a little while, then still you're rightly situated and fully qualified. So this is Kunti's devotion, and therefore she attained full, complete, perfect liberation. Again, Jiver Swarup, this is her Swarup, her inner being, her inner existence is simply Jiver Swarupai Krishnera Nityadas, Krishnera Tatashta Shakti Beta Beta Prakash. And this is possible because we're simultaneously one with and separate from Krishna. if, as the Mayavadis do, if you inordinately stress the oneness, then this is horrible, because when there's oneness, then there's no question of lover and beloved, parent and child, master and servant, God and servant. There's no conception of that if the oneness is inordinately, what's the word? Emphasis is inordinately emphasized. Therefore, Prabodhananda Saraswati says, Kaivalyam narakayate, chidasha porakasha pushpayate. That impersonal liberation, narakayate, it's like going to hell. It's literally worse than going to hell, because at least in hell, you can still think, oh, I'm in hell, but I'm the servant of Krishna still. So at least you can think like that. But in the impersonal liberation, that distinction is eradicated, and therefore there can be no conception of being a devotee of Krishna. Therefore, kaivalyam narakayate, this kind of oneness is hellish. And tridasha porakasha pushpayate, what to speak of the enjoyment of the demigods? This is a phantasmagoria, like akash pushpayate, like a flower in the sky. A flower in the sky means there's no such thing as a flower in the sky. But if you're intoxicated or tripping or crazy, or there's some optical illusion, you might think, oh, there's a flower in the sky. So this is the enjoyment of the demigods, and liberation is hell. On the other hand, if the oneness is completely ignored and only duality is stressed, the upside is that with that duality, you can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I am his eternal servant. And this is awesome and beneficial and perfect. Therefore, we have Madhvacharya, right? Going like that. Two. There's two. Dvaitavad. There's two, because without two, there can be no devotion. So he's teaching that. But also in the teaching, and actually in the whole sampradaya of Madhvacharya, because they just focus on the two-ness, on the Dvaitavad, and forget the element of oneness that is also real. Therefore, some element of intimacy is lost. Me and my son are very close, and you could say we're one. He's Mr. Podlovsky, and I'm Mr. Podlovsky. So we're one, in a sense. We're two. I'm the father, he's the son, but we're one, and that oneness allows great intimacy and great love. Or a husband and wife become one. Even I think that's like part of the liturgy, right? That you're declared to be one, a husband and wife. And less popular now, but still, I think the wife takes the name of the husband, so they become one, Mr. and Mrs. such and such, right? So similarly with Krishna, when the oneness is understood in context, that we're so close, that we're one, and yet we're distinct, then you could have the existence of Krishna as the object of love, and me, the jiva, as the expresser of love to Krishna. And at the same time, the oneness is there to allow such a degree of intimacy and closeness that is otherwise not available. And this understanding is what allows Kunti to express her love for Krishna so powerfully, so beautifully, that again, vipada shantuta shashat, even calamities come, it doesn't matter. I'm there with Krishna, it's fine. Calamities come, whatever. And if it brings Krishna to me because those calamities come, even better, more and more. Just like again in the at the end of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, for example, let's see the time. At the end of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when the Sikshastaka verse is being described, Prabhupada in a purport quotes Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, saying that a devotee, because he's talking about Radharani, who is saying, let me leave me, he can embrace me, or he can leave me brokenhearted. Either way, they're both equally fine with her. He's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. And Prabhupada quotes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta saying that a devotee has no way of understanding happiness except by whether Krishna is happy. This is oneness. This is Beda Bed Prakash, Krishnara Tatashta Shakti, Beda Bed Prakash. This is the oneness and the individuality at the same time. That if Krishna is happy, I'm happy. That that therefore I serve him and I make him happy, and that's my own greatest happiness. And the oneness, because happiness, except for Krishna's happiness, my happiness has no other meaning, no other definition. So anyway, this is a little about Kunti. Like I said, it's so nice, Vidura inquiring from Uddhava like this, hearing about all these wonderful devotees who are so important and so exemplary. And the Kunti Stotra are such amazing prayers, always worth revisiting. And Prabhupada's book, Teachings of Queen Kunti, based on his lectures, is also an amazing explanation of that, always worth revisiting. Thank you very much, everybody, for your very kind attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Also, I hope and trust that there in Philly, you had a wonderful and ecstatic Janmashtami celebration and ecstatic celebration of Srila Prabhupada's appearance. If there's any questions or comments, we can discuss now. Yes, Vishnu Gada Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Acharya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
You were talking about the thumbnails of the different Pandavas, and
Yes.
with Bhim, even though Yudhishthira Maharaj had instructed that they all treat Dhritarashtra as king, but then it said that Dhritarashtra was staying in the house of Bhima and eating the scraps of food, like a household dog. So if Dhritarashtra could have gone to the other palaces and been treated better, why did he stay in the house of Bhima?
I don't know. I always I guess from that description, I sort of got the impression that they were all living together in the same palace. Perhaps,
Okay.
but I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
But that was always my assumption, that Yudhishthira, the Pandavas, and all the servants were sort of all there together, or at least would sometimes come together. They would meet regularly. Maybe that's it, that they had their individual palaces and places of residence, but naturally they would all come together. And especially if Dhritarashtra is being, respected as a pseudo king, then naturally he's going to be there in the assembly with all the others. So perhaps that was what was going on. I'm not certain.
Okay. And you mentioned Yudhishthira Maharaj being the son of Yamaraj. Of course,
Yes.
we also know that Vidura was Yamaraj incarnated because of the curse of Mandakuni.
Oh, yeah.
So if you could clarify that just for a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. I don't know what to clarify. We heard the description how what is it? Yamaraj was cursed by Mandavya Muni to take birth as a mixed caste person, low class person, and thus took birth as Vidura. And that same Dharmaraj is also the father of Yudhishthira. So, and also in their relationship, he was, even in the relationship on this earth, he was practically like a father to them, especially after the disappearance of Pandu.
Yeah,
I
take it that
you have more to add to it.
There was so he was cursed. Yamaraj was cursed to take birth on the earth as the son of a Shudrani, but also many of the demigods at the time of the announcement that Krishna was appearing, when he gave the transmission of the message into the heart of Brahma, he said, okay, everybody, you demigods, you go take birth in the family of the Yadus.
Yeah.
To help me in my mission. So, but we see that a lot of the demigods, they didn't leave their posts. It seems that they expanded themselves, or they gave their Shakti to somebody.
Yeah,
But
that could
Yamaraj
be
didn't.
an ability.
Yamaraj, he had to actually come, and then he got a replacement.
Right,
He had to get somebody to take over his service in the meantime. Otherwise, so
right,
I take it that replacement Yamaraj was the replacement whose name is Ariyama, which is almost like Yamaraj.
right.
Was the father of Yudhishthir. And it seems like, I mean, I've never read this anywhere, but these are just speculative ideas that the curse that Mandavya, or sometimes it's called Mandak Muni, gave to Yamaraj must have had some fine print in it, saying you can't just expand yourself and get out of this curse like that.
Right,
That makes sense.
right. Yeah,
Anyway.
that's interesting. And that curse, of course, was actually a blessing that he gets to be fully present in the pastimes of Krishna and the Pandavas. I'm
Yes,
sure
yes,
I'm sure that he
yes.
was fine with that curse, and I'm sure it was some sort of divine arrangement that he was quite okay with.
Yes. And just a little comment about the sati, sati, yeah, that even though it's shocking to our current society, but the most celebrated love story in the West, at least, is what?
You mean Romeo and Juliet?
Romeo and Juliet. And what did they do? They died for each other. They killed
Yeah.
themselves for each other. So I mean, and of course, in our society, if someone, they sacrifices their life for their country, oh, that's very wonderful. There's the guy Nathan Hale. Remember Nathan Hale? I regret that I have just one life to give to my country, because he didn't want to spill the beans. He was a spy, and so then he died. So okay, and we extol that, say that's wonderful. But so these women who were voluntarily sati, they must have been on a very high platform of not knowing that they're not this body to
Right.
be able to do that. So of course now we're not. It Prabhupada commented it can't be forced, and that was a big problem that was forced, and because the Brahmins would get the money of the widows widow's family, so therefore it was.
Yeah. No, we definitely worship and appreciate these great women from Vedic times who did that and understand what they do. But I'll still say, don't do it now.
Yeah, yes.
But yeah, it's amazing, and we worship these women for what they were willing to do, and not just the action, but the ideals that they embody that allowed that to happen are glorious. So
Yes.
today we more want to cultivate the ideals without the jumping in the fire part.
Yeah.
We could still try to emulate those ideals.
Yes, thank you. And of course, you give the list of chaste women from one of the Puranas you had mentioned, wasn't it? Purana?
Yeah, Brahma Purana.
Yeah. And of course, Srila Prabhupada also usually included Gandhari in this list of chaste women who.
Yes,
who did
Gandhari. He would
Yeah.
Gandhari, Sita. I think Sati also sometimes, and Draupadi and Mandodari were
Yes.
women that he would semi-regularly mention as examples.
Yes. But it's interesting, the list you mentioned is Tara. And that's a little funny because Tara, according to different versions of the Ramayana, she was married to Vali, but then she got married
Right.
Sugriva afterwards. So how does that fit in?
That in the end, her wisdom and position were proven, just like you could say Ahalya also.
Yes.
The story is that she was seduced by Indra, and some of the descriptions say that, she didn't know it was her husband.
Yes.
And some of the descriptions say she actually knew it was Indra, but she went for it anyway. So even in that case, you could say, she's not that chaste. But in the end, her chastity, and even more than her chastity, her devotion to Krishna was proven in the end, and therefore it all came out positive.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Sure. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Question or comment?
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for
Thank you.
beautiful stories you gave. That Parjanya, and then now there's Sursena. They gave the names to their children. That's what even now in India we always follow
Hmm.
that we give the names for the children to their grandfathers and fathers like that. They
Right.
give like that. And then another thing is these Kunti prayers, Kunti Stotra. So a lot of them, those prayers, I always read of them, how much he prays for Krishna. Though he's a nephew, he's younger than her, but she thinks that Krishna is just supreme, and she prays. That is the one thing I always read those prayers, Kunti prayers.
Sorry.
And she says, just she puts Krishna in the center of the thing and then pray. That's all.
Right.
So, I'm the servant of Krishna, that's it. So that's how we have to think. I always feel that. And about these 5 people you are talking about, Ahalya, Draupadi, Kunti, Tara, Mandodari. So those prayers, what is that you said?
It's a verse from the Brahma Purana.
Okay.
And at least in some places in Hindu society, there are women who, say that prayer every day. I read this in Wikipedia, so
Okay.
so take it for what it's worth. But the verse is from that actual verse describing the 5 and saying, if you remember them always, it'll destroy all sin. That's from the Brahma Purana. And it's a cultural thing in some parts of India that women will recite that prayer.
Okay. And then Sati Sagaman is means like after husband, the wife was into the fire. Those were the things when I think when the child, they used to do the child marriage in India also. So that time the child cannot survive without, once she's married, that's it. And then she cannot survive without husband. And people will talk and some things will happen when she grows in teenage, older than that. So that's why they used to do that putting her in the fire.
Yeah.
It's not that easy, and somebody has to have daring to jump into the fire.
It takes incredible, I don't know what you call it, fortitude, whatever. I mean, if I'm cooking and I get a splash of hot ghee on my hand, I start crying. So who could imagine that? And I'll just say, like the sati and so even child marriages, so many aspects of Vedic culture that are glorious and wonderful and have their rationale and their reasoning and explanation.
Yes.
But at the same time, in the modern day, a person has to be a little bit intelligent how to and when to and whether to apply them and in what way.
Yeah.
But at least in the Vedic context, we appreciate all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Vishnu Gadaprabhu.
Yeah, so we take our direction from Srila Prabhupada. And
yes.
Yeah. So did Srila Prabhupada recommend sati? No, he didn't.
Right.
So we don't. But as it seems to he extols the idea of this chastity, but not the immolation in the fire. And as you pointed out very nicely, many of these traditional things that are there in the Vedic society have been perverted in certain ways that make them unusable or grotesque in some ways because of those perversions.
Right. Yes. Very clear. Well explained by you, especially referring to Srila Prabhupada's teachings and example. That's right.
So Krishnaika Sevanam, that's all. That's what we had to do. And then, a lot of things changed in the modern culture. And it's not that easy for a person after husband, living after husband, But.
Right. And there's also actually many cases where without sati, it's not unusual to hear that a long married couple, one dies and then the other spouse dies of natural causes, but within a very short time. This also is not unheard of. My mother died just like 2 or 3 months after my father passed away, just like that, without having to jump in the fire. It's almost natural in a
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, I heard one story also. The person was in the hospital, that female was in the hospital, wife. And then 1 month she was in the hospital, and that husband was going to the hospital and staying a senior couple, and my own relatives. And then after a little while, suddenly the wife passed away.
Mm.
So the husband went to saw her, and then husband passed away, and then wife went. That's all. She passed away same day. It
Right.
happened.
Yeah, so these things happen, not all the time, but
Not all the time.
it shows that leaving aside the question of actually jumping in the fire,
Yeah.
this is a natural thing that if you love someone and live with someone and devote your life to serving them and taking care of them for decades and decades, then naturally there's going to be, it's not crazy to think that, oh, the center of your life is gone and you'll also fade away shortly after that. It's not crazy to think like that.
Well,
But
part of
one
the
thing, Prabhu,
part of the idea is that the wife, by doing so, goes to the destination of the husband.
Right.
Same destination.
Right.
But
And also
we don't
nowadays,
recommend that nowadays.
right. And also nowadays, guaranteeing that the destination of the husband is going to be terrific is also not a sure thing. So it's also a gamble for the wife who does that. Better to fly your own plane, as Prabhupada would sometimes explain. But yeah, we appreciate it. At the very least, we appreciate the concept and the ideals that these things embody.
yes.
Anything else?
Thank you very much for.
You're welcome, Mother. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for your kind attention. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Panchakalpatarubhyascha.
Sarvesya kripa sindhupya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo Namo. Hare Krishna.